Good evening, everyone. How are we doing tonight? Yes? A little tired? Long day? Lots of walking? That's right. Welcome to this evening. Are you here to say something or me? I'll do it? Okay. Just double check. All right. Well, welcome to tonight's panel discussion. Storytelling Ignited, the Digital Frontier. I am the moderator. My name is DTM. That's my name, Delta Tango Mike. You can find me anywhere on the internet, Delta Tango Mike. I will be here asking the questions and letting the panelists answer them as best as they can. No wrong answers, not just but I will give them a chance to each one introduce themselves. And to start off, name, where you're from, what is your passion, and what have you made? So that can be a project, books, writing, etc. But that gives us a little insight as to who you are. So we'll start from this end, work our way.
Hey everybody, my name is Noret Flood. My passion, I think, is storytelling, but storytelling that weaves together a lot of world building and how the social systems that we exist in and how they interact with the concrete world. I'm from LA, sorry, I jumped out of order. And what I made, I'm an author of Lit RPG, which is sort of a subgenre of fantasy, and my story is called The Legend of Rantedly Ghost Town.
Thank y'all. So my name is Dedren Snead, and I'm from here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm passionate about learning, both being a student and looking to teach as I can from my experiences and journeys along the way. One of the projects that I get a chance to work on as a writer and creative is a fantasy series called Sorghum and Spear. It's a fantasy series about girls that beat up monsters, and so it's probably my most popular work, and just being able to share my creative journey on that just kind of feeds into that passion. Thank y'all.
All right, my turn. Hey, folks. Testing. There we go. Hey, folks. My name is Kimberly Unger. I write science fiction by night, and by day I work in virtual reality. And the thing I'm passionate about is that liminal space where people and technology sort of mash up against each other and sort of communicating where the changes are, where they're coming from, and how we can sort of figure all of this stuff out as we go.
Nice. Good answers. All of you. Good answers. Kimberly, where are you from?
I'm from the Bay Area.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, so start off with the first question. Where does your passion for storytelling come from? We'll let Kimberly answer first.
I like telling people what to do. I spent a number of years early on as an educator. I graduated with an art degree, and I came out immediately into teaching and trying to explain new technology to students. This was back when 3ds Max suddenly became commercially available and anybody could afford it. This is when CGI went from $20,000 and $30,000 computers down to a computer you can have in your living room. Right about the same time, Babylon 5 showed up with their Amiga-driven special effects, and so I started by explaining all of these things to people who were just sort of coming off of analog into digital. And that sort of has carried through just everything that I do.
Did you, and just to follow up, when you started storytelling, did you find yourself using different technology to tell a story? Like you have a book, so it's a physical thing, which has been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. Did you start off also online, selling the PDF version or something like that, or did you slowly take technology?
I've done a couple of different things. I started online, not necessarily selling the PDFs, but just in terms of getting my cadence going and figuring out how to communicate with people. I started with online in chat rooms and fandoms, those kinds of things. When I went to sort of print books, I crossed back over, and so like a lot of my books have AR covers and have sort of, or historically have had online presences, although at the moment I think they're all kind of like dead because I haven't had time to update them, because that is the problem with technology, is that it stops working after a while, whereas a book will not. So it went from a little bit digital to a combination of print and digital, and I think that's where it's going to stay, because I think they each have their strengths, and I'm trying to figure out how to make them all work together.
Nice. All right, we're going to take a moment to break up our flow and to welcome TJ. Hello, how are you doing, TJ, today?
Doing well. Thanks for letting me finish dinner, guys. 10 to 7 is a long day.
Yes. Yes.
With no breaks, we needed food, so happy to be here, though. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. And after 3 hotels, 3 blocks, and then the Mart,
Yeah.
whole another block, uphill. Oh my God. Yeah, I did it. So TJ, tell us where you're from, what is your passion, and what did you make?
Yeah, kind of from, I've lived in a lot of places. I'm originally a Michigander, but I spent 18 years there, 22 in New Jersey, and then the last 3 years and change in Los Angeles. So I had a different taste of a couple different coasts, and I've always been passionate about art, nerdy things, comics, games, anime, art, anything where you could express yourself through some type of creative medium. It's always been exciting and fun to me. So, I started collecting comics in the late 80s. Got really bit by the comic book in the mid 90s when I saw X-Men #1 and the whole Image wave, and absolutely loved those comics and loved what they looked like and the possibilities of what they could be. And my biggest thing was I've got all these stories in my head. I think I've always been a storyteller, so wanted to make my own comics. And about 18 years of being in school for art, and then college and working at Marvel as an intern, and then doing some stuff with Dark Horse and DC and Aspen. I'm just hey, time to start my own thing, time to start my own company. And I did that 10 years ago in 2015. So now we're celebrating 10 years at Ray Media.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, clap it up for 10 years.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, great.
So the question is, where does your passion for storytelling come from? I think you kind of touched on that already. Can you give us a little bit more? I remember those Image days, the big splash in the comic book scene. Mm-hmm. I started spending a lot of money in comics right there around that time.
Yeah, I think when you talk about passion, it's a voice in your spirit that kind of speaks to you. And that could be for anything. That could be you playing football, that could be you cooking, could be you painting or making comics. That's what kind of spoke to me, was the sequential media form. Because to me, comics were always the gateway to more. It was literally the thing that bridged the gap to animation. Or if you wanted to be a game designer, most of those people started out as comic book heads. Or if you wanted to get into mural painting or storyboard work for film, pick a profession that's artistic. Usually there's some type of comic book origin story connected to it, which is pretty awesome.
All right, thank you. Dedren, where does your passion come from?
Well, I think for me, a lot of the passion that I have for writing and creating is really around the space of collaboration, right? I think that I love my stories and things that I like to work on, and being creative and technical. But at the same time, I feel like the best stories are the stories of the people, like to my right and my left, and literally could be to my right and my left here, have not shared with the world, right? And so I think that's when the educator comes out. Right? I want to see that people have their dreams fulfilled. And so I think I'm great in that space of production and development. Yes, I can write and I can do a lot of things, but I think the things I love to do with my time is really just to see people's work come through and just flourish. So I think in that, the stories that we keep to ourselves a lot of times have the richness, the reality, the frailty of life, but at the same time, they're the ones that are most rich. So building fantastic worlds that can draw people in is one start, but I think having those worlds that can be shared among each other, I think so where you see the passion that people have for Star Wars, for a lot of the popular media that makes us come to a Dragon Con that we want to celebrate. We can see ourselves in that story, both from a human but also from a narrative standpoint. So that's what I really love about storytelling in some. And then the digital opportunity just gives us a chance to reach new bridges and spaces that from a global standpoint, that is really I think just the platform that we're all striving to see it thriving.
Right. All right, thank you for that. Noret, same question. Where does your passion for storytelling come from?
Yeah, well, that was a great answer. I think my passion for storytelling came from being a reader and kind of a lonely kid when I was younger, spending a lot of time in libraries, reading all these stories. And I think a lot about how I want to almost pay it forward, that I read a bunch of stories, a bunch of weird stories that were like niche and like out of the way. I stumbled across some like sort of smutty books way too early on in my life, and I was like, oh my god, what's going on here? And it made me realize like, oh, I can have a story too, even if my, whatever my interest may be, like there is an audience out there for that. And I think like that also is a great way to think about what makes me really passionate, just to be like, I want people who read my stuff, whatever the book is about, to also know that like you have a story and you should tell it to people, because like people want to share stories and receive stories from other people.
Nice. That's right. So we touched upon technology, and Kimberly mentioned the chat rooms and stuff. So when did you start seeing technology as part of your process in telling these stories to the world, right? And because print's been around for a long time, and technology just keeps like flying by. And so go back to the beginnings when you felt like, okay, I can talk about this in these chat rooms or online on a blog or something, and then how did that impact your reach? So let's start here and work our way back.
Yeah, cool. I had two thoughts on this. One, I write in a sort of niche genre called lit RPG, and so a lot of the rules for the world building come from games. And so the one way growing up with like games that weren't as realistic as they are now, sometimes they had to cheat to make sort of like rules to like pretend that this is real. And so I think while that, kind of it, if you were playing a skiing game, you weren't skiing, but like it took away ambiguity in a way that let you experience something like skiing. And I really think that was a lesson that I took from the digital world, that sometimes taking away ambiguity of things that aren't really important to like the core thing, like that's fine. And the other way, like you said, was reach. I started writing when I was an attorney and I didn't have much time, and so when I read, it was mostly on my phone, online stuff. And so at some point I realized this is great that it's so convenient, but also like I can do this. I could share a story via this medium and reach a lot of people.
Thank you. Awesome. Good. Cool.
Let's see. I think likewise, growing up in a library in a rural Eastern North Carolina, there was literally probably the one computer in that library for the whole county. And I just remember as a kid, if anyone ever has heard of mud games, right? Yeah. So there you go. So the net, right? Not the internet, just the net. That's all we had. And the idea is, having, and for those that don't know, and probably a few generations forward, is a mud dungeon is just text-based prompts, right? And it just goes through. And so someone wrote that, right? And we would play through these games. But then we realized and figured out that if we could write those same games, that then we'd have these big stacks of notebooks of us trying to make those dungeons. Mm-hmm. And the best thing was, you spend all summer trying to make that one dungeon, which somebody could probably play through in 5 minutes. But it was a fact that was your story world. And so for me, that got me into computer science and into programming, because I wanted to make those dungeons bigger and bigger. And so that's where I was able to see technology, like the fantastic spaces that I thought I saw from watching the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. I wanted to make that. And so I didn't have all the resources to do that, but I could write. And so the idea of writing and making those old mud dungeons back in the day really is what got me into game design and the development and some other spaces from there. But that's why I saw technology. It didn't matter. I was in this small pig town in Eastern North Carolina. I had a computer, and that means that someone else could see what I could do. And so that was really just an amazing space to come into technology and storytelling.
Nice. Kimberly, tell us a little bit more about your process when telling the world about your stories.
I mean, for me, technology's always been a piece of it, right? Like just from the very beginning, either using technology, using early word processors, using early digital art. I'm going to refer to TJ over here. Remember the big fight once upon a time about whether or not colorists should use computers to do colorists?
Wow.
Blew up the entire industry for a while. Like for me, it's technology has been a blue ocean that I could get into. There weren't a lot of people in it at the time. There were a lot of people who were experts and who were professionals, but they were either slow to pick it up or resistant to pick it up. And that gave me an opportunity. That was a space that I felt like I could get in by being first or being early. And so so it's always been a piece, right? One way or the other, either through the distribution or through the creation.
Right.
And it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still a part of what I do.
Okay. TJ, tell us a little bit more.
Oh man, I'm excited about this question. My man's sleeping over here. What's going on, bro? I'm looking at you. Oh, he's awake now. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm still listening.
Okay, cool.
I be working night shift at Waffle House. So
No, you good, man. I just wanted to just tease you a little bit, you know what I'm saying? I know it's been a long day, but technology and comics and print has always been an exciting and kind of a weird thing for so many reasons. Let me just give you guys some context. If you look at the old comics, Marvel as an example, everything was colored at the printer. It wasn't done by a computer at all because they didn't exist at the time. So Captain America's blue was the same color. Captain America's red was the same color as Iron Man's red. You know, it was all literally, they would computer color. So they'd send in the ink pages, which were done on paper, to a printer, and they would make copies, and then the printer machine itself would allocate the color based on the numbers. That's where you hear colored by numbers. That's where it comes from. So when the advent of digital programs like Adobe Photoshop came into existence in the 90s, right?
Yep.
The 90s, it was crazy because people were like, what is this? What do I do with it? How do I make color happen? And can the printer even replicate what I'm making on the screen? So it becomes this like interesting balance of how do we make stuff that is going towards a specific direction, but how is it, feasible for what we currently have, in print. So you had stuff like that, which created a whole new wave. Guys like Brian Haberlin, which I learned digital coloring through Brian Haberlin's tutorials. They used to come on CDs, and you put them in, and they take forever to load, but then when you did, and you get to see his process of how he would color through Adobe Photoshop. And now you've got amazing programs like Procreate, which didn't exist before. You've got Clip Studio Paint, which didn't exist before, and all this stuff can be done on an iPad. A lot of it can be done on your phone. So the possibilities for creativity are boundless now. There's literally no guardrails to it. You can do almost anything with the technology, and that's why I say YouTube University is perfect for kids his age. Right here in the front, you want to learn something, like you don't even need to go to school. You could just learn it all on YouTube, or pick up a book and just decode it yourself, because the generational gap is so wide between like when I was a kid in the 80s to where you're a kid now in the 2020s. So really exciting times. I mean, I went from a traditional illustrator on paper Bristol board to a digital illustrator in Clip Studio, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made because my process is seamless. And what I do in all of my books, if you look at them, please go to raycomics.com. RAAcomics.com and take a look at my work. Thank you. There's splice between the digital drawing, and I also build environments, backgrounds in 3D. So I use a program called SketchUp. I originally learned on a program called Bryce, eventually Lightwave, and then a little bit of 3D Studio Max, but then I kind of stayed with SketchUp just for buildings to get structural integrity. And if you look at guys like Joe Quesada, the person who was once the editorial-in-chief guy at Marvel, he was building a ton of backgrounds in SketchUp and then using them to draw over and do all kinds of stuff. So use technology as a tool to advance your skill set. And the more skills, the more tools you have in your toolbox, so to speak, makes you a better technician, makes you a better draftsman, illustrator, writer, storyteller, and steer clear of AI. I talked about it in my panel this morning at 10 a.m. Don't do AI. You're just disenfranchised. It steals from other artists, A. And B, it also, there's studies now showing that people get dumber when they use AI because it forces you to not think anymore. It allows another program to think on your behalf. So it steals your creativity just like that. If you want to use it to refine your essay, okay, that's different. But when it comes to creating art, creating comics, steer clear of that because it's not going to help you. It will actually hurt you in the long run.
And there it is. Thank you for coming by. No, it's good. It's good. Thank you for sharing all of that because that is part of the progression of technology, right? It just keeps pushing and pushing. And so without going that far into the conversation, because there's other questions in between, if you're pro technology, which sounds like some of you are, or if you're against technology, the question is how easy was it to choose to add tech to your workflows when already as part of storytelling, sci-fi includes technology, right? So a lot of sci-fi stories, there's technology already involved. So how easy was it, or how hard did you fight against it? And it sounds like TJ just rolled right into it, but it has a stopping point.
The learning curve, because quickly, just to interject, learning how to draw digitally was really, really difficult because before Clip Studio and Procreate, it was just Photoshop. And there was a guy named Brian Bolland. He drew The Killing Joke, and he also drew Dave Gibbons also drew The Watchmen. These guys were like the first two people to completely draw a graphic novel digitally in Photoshop. With a mouse, not a stylus. They might have eventually graduated to a stylus on a thing, but just imagine you're looking at a screen and you're doing this. Like, it's really not easy. It's kind of difficult. So it's a feat to be able to watch them create something like that. But the learning curve was really hard, to be honest. But Clip Studio is super easy, and Procreate's even easier for some people.
And that's just something that you that you chose to tackle and try out yourself when it came to digital. You didn't sit there and have a debate with yourself.
Because the first book I ever did was pencil on paper, and then I hired an inker, and then hired a colorist, and I realized, man, comics are expensive. Oh my God, my wallet, it hurts. But not to cut out my inker, but I honestly wanted to understand lighting better, so I took on the job of a penciler / inker for the purposes of just productivity.
Kimberly, tell us a little bit pro or against tech, and how easy was it for you to jump in?
I mean, I went a little bit backwards, right? I started with technology, and then I went back and got an art degree. Okay. So I was the weird one in the room who could draw a comic book with a mouse before I learned how to draw a comic book with pen and ink. I am pro technology. I'm pro technology if it suits you, right? I think that some people's process, the way some people's brains work, is probably going to be better suited towards analog, and some people are going to be more suited towards digital. I think if you're building stuff like comic books, you can embrace both and bring them together into something that's fairly unique. Comic books come in all kinds of art styles, right? You've got Dave McKeon, who did tons of collage type stuff. You've got Scott McCloud, who's sort of wandered through, all kinds of different styles. And what's interesting, particularly in comic books, is that sometimes from the end result, you can't tell which pieces are which. Like if it's done well, right? It all just blends together into one piece of art when you're done with it. So I think, I think you should adopt the technology that suits you and suits your process. But you shouldn't, mean, I'd say you shouldn't adopt technology for technology's sake, but you should adopt it as a tool,
Right.
right? So that's
And
fine.
so that was an easy decision for you to make at that time.
It was, yeah. And you can't ever stop with technology, right? There's not a point at which you can rest on your laurels and say, hey, I know this piece of software, or I know how to do this technique, and then just be still. You have to keep learning and keep moving forward. Otherwise, you're just going to get stuck. And eventually, then we get back to, eventually the programs break, right? You get bit rot, you get version 275, and they change the subscription service on you, and you get left behind again. So it is never ending in a way I think that analog is not.
Yeah, right. Okay. Dedren, you're pro, against? How hard or how easy was it to choose technology in your workflow?
Definitely for me, I'm pro tech, right? And so I think in the space, maybe historically, when I was in high school, right, I was a traditional artist, and I got into art school, but then I also got into engineering school, and so I ended up being an engineer. Hated it because it wasn't creative, and then went completely left and just became an economist. And so, but along the way, just coming up with just really the advent of just affordable internet, and a lot of the programs, which were like all the Adobe Suite things again, I think you were saying earlier, became, when I could build games in Flash and Dreamweaver and these other programs, and then once we all pirated all those things, we were able to make a lot of stuff. And so we realized that while we were sending in letters to Marvel, trying to show pages and stuff, that we could just make it ourselves. And so with that, I think it unlocked a level of creativity and agency that just let us be really entrepreneurial, even if we didn't have the business. So the idea was that we could make our own things. So for me, the technology was always the collaborator that I couldn't afford or couldn't get a hold of. Now I think it was said, and I'm absolutely a part of it. Now currently doing a lot of research in artificial intelligence. That tool can't replace me. It doesn't have my lived experiences, no matter how forward, progressive, how active and interactive it is. I look at it as not a competition, but I think it's just a compliment, right? Whatever I do, it can't exist without my input, without my output. And so in that sense, it's still something we have to be cognizant of, because it does take people's jobs. It does have an economic and environmental cost. But that's with any type of technological innovation, right? Just because we see a little bit more, I think just all at once, it's just a very sudden shift at a very critical time in humanity. But I think with that, the technology as a tool probably is my resting place. But I want a strong toolbox for whatever it is that I'm doing.
Awesome. Noret, tell us about your pro and against tech.
Actually, I think on the panel, I would be the most anti-tech, which is kind of a surprise to me. I am a straight author, so I do mostly writing, and for me, italics and bold, that was the big development in technology. I'm pro tech. I just don't often find that what I really want to do, what I'm trying to do, is empowered that much. With the caveat that obviously the internet provides so much more reach. You can reach such a larger audience. You can go to so many more people. I do often think that the way I approach problems has been influenced by tech. Specifically in terms of storytelling, I sometimes think in almost cheating in tech terms there are genre cliches for a reason, but sometimes if you find the right one, you can hack pretty easily into someone's brain when you show the right few details about a character or about a plot, and it gives them a pretty immediate understanding of what's going to happen. And that is super helpful for an author to empower and save words, keep things efficient.
Okay, but when it comes to writing and then at technology, I remember in high school we took a typewriting class.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We still back in the day.
Monkeys.
It was an electric typewriter though, and clack 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 clack. and that's what it sounded like. And so it kind of empowered you to write more, right? Versus when you're so as a writer, did you start writing which by hand and then move on to word processor to laptop? Did you find that technology empowering and helpful in your workflow?
This is sort of beyond my writing specifically, but when I was growing up, I never planned on being a writer. When I took notes in class, I would always do them by hand. And I remember in graduate school, for the first time, laptops were available, and I was like, okay, I should try this. And my grades honestly plummeted after switching from writing to typing. There's just like a thing that you miss. However, you're right. And so now, as a writer, I type everything. Except when I'm like struggling with something pretty big, bringing everything together, and then I like to like write out by hand, make little pieces, and like arrange them, have a physical thing.
Right. Okay. Cool. So anti-tech with tech, kind of that good work. We will touch on AI. Don't worry. There's something to be said about it. I will say this: that in the early days of Illustrator and Photoshop, I was playing around with computer programs. And there's this one artist, he's an Atlanta artist, his name is Goldie Gold, and amazing, talented artist. And him and C-Flex, they're like incredible with their talents. And so their art is very clean and sharp. They went to art school. They were some of the first artists that I met who were using Illustrator. And I would joke with Goldie, and I would say the same thing. I'd be like, oh man, the computer's doing this for you. Is it doing it for you? And he would say, you try it. And I was like, you know what, why not? And so I tried it, and I was like, this is a lot of hard work. And I was drawing in Illustrator with the mouse. I had no idea about tablets, nothing, but I was actually drawing with the mouse because you do it so long, you get used to it. But it's still a process that you have to do by hand. And I mention this because with Procreate has a lot of tools that do things for you. So if you're not a good drawer, you can be a good drawer if you use Procreate. I was teaching an artist, because I've been a tattoo artist for 30 years, and I had an apprentice, and she was showing me her art, and it looked beautiful, and I was like, that's nice. And it was all on Procreate. And then I said, well, let's put that away. And I brought out some paper and pencils. And that is where then we saw the limits that they had when it came to the talent, because technology can be a crutch to some. And going back to school, to learn art, so then you can really appreciate the tech for what it can do to art. I think it shows that there has to be the talent, some kind of talent involved in there. So anyways, I just wanted to touch on that Procreate, because later on when we talk about AI, there's an element to AI that I feel that we want to get your opinions on. And if you don't understand storytelling, if you don't understand the arts, if you don't understand the process, then AI is just a crutch, and I want to get your opinions on that. In the meantime, I will say this. I will ask, how do you feel, or how do you see the future of technology benefiting your storytelling, either in the process, how you make it, or the experience of those who read or watch your stories, when we're talking about AR, VR, Web3, etc. And anybody who wants to go first has something to say about it, jump in.
Yeah, so I got a comic book called Joystick Angels, and it's really dope because I made it. It's actually really dope because I made it with my brother, and I really respect my brother incredibly because he's a talented, creative storyteller and musician. Like, this dude knows sound. Like, he can tell a story and evoke an emotion with sound. And we have been in the same room buying comics and playing games since we was, really, really little. And, as time went on, we become adults, or we live together, and, he's got albums that he's coming out with, and I'm helping him with album covers, and he sees the comics I'm making, and it's like, oh man, when we should collaborate on a comic book, something that's retro, futuristic, 80s, arcade, kind of like space opera, because we love Star Wars and Star Trek as kids, because our dad just drilled into, so this is the best stuff. So Star Trek, the new Next Generation, by the way, Picard all the way. But what's dope about Joystick Angels is that besides it being a beautiful book, it comes to the soundtrack, and the digital aspect of it is that it has QR codes at the beginning of every chapter. So literally when you open up the book, pull out your phone, camera, turn the camera on, and literally the QR code is going to take you to a breakout link where you can listen to this instrumental soundtrack built custom made for the artwork, for the story. So it becomes an immersive experience. It's beyond just a regular comic book. So I love that title. I'm super excited about it. We just, debuted Volume 1. We signed a distribution deal with Lunar Distribution just last month. And there's going to be more of that book across stores in the country. It's currently available at my table at 528 in the America's Mart. Y'all want to pull up tomorrow.
Right.
And my brother's in the audience. He'll sign the book too. But yeah, I just think like healthy ways of hybriding technology is always going to be fun. QR codes are super simple. A lot of them are free. You can get them generated, no problem. But so many companies have done different things over the years. I feel like Marvel did an AR thing for a long time, which you kind of touched on, and that was pretty cool, but it was very expensive, so I don't think they continued to do it. But yeah, like you can find something that's natural and it feels like you're supposed to do it with tech. Like, do that.
Yeah. Anybody else planning on using technology for telling stories? Immersive, bringing people in?
I mean, yes.
All right.
I mean, you don't want to force it. Is kind of the thing, right?
Yeah.
The stories and the technologies sort of naturally adapt themselves together, and I think part of that is the audience, right? Like you will have a hard time, if your audience is pointed at 75-year-old grandmothers with cats, and then you have a full-on AR, VR, pop-out, narrative that comes out of your traditional book when you put the glasses on, like. Probably your audience is not gonna pick up on the expansion of the story. But if you've got the right story, if you've got the right technology, if you've got an audience that can work with that technology, there is an opportunity. I'm thinking of like ARGs, right? So something like I Love Bees, or I think Nolan did one for Tenet, where people are out in the world, right, hunting for clues. They're hunting for pieces of the story, and then bringing them all together. And then you compare that with a video game experience or with a virtual reality experience or something like that. So that the people who put the effort in to get the whole package get the deepest story, right? They get the most out of the story. And then you've got elements out there for people who want to dip in. People who only want to read the book, people who only want to do the web piece of it, right? And it expands your audience in a way, but it also it lets you meet them where they're ready to be met,
Right.
Which I think is it takes a little care and a little consideration, but I think it's an interesting way to approach getting your story out there.
Do you think that by trying different technologies, you can expand on your audience, or is your subject matter and your genre very, very tightly wound upon a particular?
I think there are a lot of people out there who never would have consumed any of George R.R. Martin's content unless Game of Thrones had made it onto HBO. Right? I think that everybody has a preferred way to consume. And I think a lot of those ways these days are technologically driven. So meeting your audience where they live, where they reside, is I think a key piece to that. And you can expand your audience. An audience, particularly in digital, will try things that they might not have otherwise tried. Right? Someone will pick up a fantasy show, or somebody will pick up a web comic because it's there and it's easy to access. But they might not go, buy a different book at the bookstore, just because the friction is different, the commitment is different, the fear of buying the wrong thing is different. I think technology can give you access to a broader range of people who might not otherwise take the risk.
Well, I have a follow-up question then. I know we're going to come back around, but think about this. What tech are you ready to try to expand the stories that you have to tell? And like TJ, because I wanted to touch on that too, is that that's a great idea. I don't know if anybody understands what he said about the music that goes with the story as you're reading the story. It's like watching a movie, like a TV show, right? And I always thought that I would be the first one to try that storytelling. And just like I thought I was going to be the first Mexican rapper back in the 90s. I'm missing out on these first. But so having technology today kind of opens up another way of saying something. So think about how that relates as we go down the line to Dedren telling us how do you see the future technology benefiting your storytelling, and then we'll wrap it up with that second part.
Well, absolutely. So definitely for me, leading into technology to teach, right? I think that's the best case scenario of how people that may not have been included in a lot of other traditional systems of learning and development, that technology can be a strong bridge for people to learn, particularly for our younger generation, right? Generation Beta and Generation Alpha, right? Who are completely digitally immersed, right? I think if you gave them a pencil and paper, they would not know what that is, right? In comparison to an iPad. But what they can do with that iPad is what it would take 10 people with pencil and paper to do, from that point. So I think as they look at not how we are framing a lot of traditional into digital experiences, all of their experiences are digital, right? They have digital learning days, they have digital, they've seen their parents go to digital jobs, they have digital economies and infrastructure. So I think as we are thinking through this future, that's pretty much what we are committing to, is that we have to utilize technology as a component. Now, obviously there's too much. I think the pandemic gave us a good, realistic component when everyone was taken away and had to use technology. The main thing we wanted to do was to not use it, right? And so we all wanted to go outside, even if outside was dangerous. And so the point being that there can be too much technology. And just to that second part, that the learning infrastructure just of the world is changing because we just have so much information, but we don't have so much story. And so I think in that sense, that expertise of being able to tell great stories is only going to become an even more rare and valuable commodity. So we see it, right? We're going to go to the AI part, so I'll save it from there.
All right. Yes, go ahead, Noret.
Yeah, I think, just from the perspective of someone focused mainly on novels, the next thing, or the new big thing is audio. So many people are busy, they're working jobs, they're doing something, they're cleaning the house, they're watching kids, and they want to listen to something. And when you ask somebody if they read a book, they'll say yes, even if they listen to it. And I think that's fine. I take the stance that, yeah, you should say that. We read the book. No shame. But we should acknowledge that this is what people are doing because of technology. I remember when I was young and I had a giant stereo in my room and I listened to a book on tape and I took out cassette by cassette and put it in and then flipped it around and it was annoying and there was just so many cassettes. But now it's all on the phone. It's all easy. Giving access to that is letting people read, and that's wonderful.
So go ahead, anybody who wants to jump in the second part, because I also feel that and Dedren touched on the pandemic, we were forced to use technology, quickly. And fortunately for me, I was already streaming and from home, and I had the computers and so on. And so I didn't miss a beat. And also communicating with my clients, when a lot of them are not locally. So along with that jump into everyone having to use technology has jumped so hard that with everything in our phone, it took a whole household of tech all into one phone, right? Recording, video, audio, and so you can also create the content in that way. So now you have a lot of access for anyone to make the content. So I forgot how I was framing the thing about the comic book and the music, but it's how do you see yourself then using the technology to then also make things equal or easy to finish something up? Because something that you mentioned, Dedren also, or TJ, is I don't want to take the job of my inker, but I can do it now because technology made that possible. Do you guys remember my question? All right, go for it.
One time, please. Can you just repeat it one more time, the question?
The question was, how do you see technology benefiting storytelling? But also, how ready are you to expand your storytelling with these technology? And when you mentioned the comics and music, it's like you're immersing the person and stuff. But Kimberly said, well, it depends on where you at. Like, where is the person at? And I think Noret touched it when he said, well, you can read, and I'm not into audiobooks because I don't want to sit there because I want to do other things. And I do that with TV shows. Sometimes I want to listen to them while I'm doing something else. So how far are you taking technology to expand on your stories and reach a different audience or make it more immersive? And TJ, you mentioned some of that already. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
Oh man, yeah, I just say it's my thing is like make it make sense, right? It's got to make sense, like however you're using tech, and if it increases productivity, yes. If it helps you become a better artist and better storyteller, yes. If it helps you understand, how to do certain things. I mean, 3D is so cool. You can build so many great things with it. I mean, it will help you with logo design. I mean, I have a whole other job that I do when I'm not doing comics that is centered around typography and, package design. And that, discipline is insanely informative and helpful when designing and creating like a small logo or some graphics for a presentation, or when I created my listing for the lunar distribution deal, that was all me just playing around based on my knowledge of typography. So understanding other forms of technology and other disciplines and how to implement them is really helpful and cross-functional. So yeah, I just think there's just no real limit to what tech can do, but also you don't want to make it flashy tech and then the story ain't good. You know what I'm saying? Like, make the story great. Take the time to really do your research, put in lots of character design and development processes, and make it fun. Make it a genuinely cool story to read, and then add all the bells and whistles and the frosting and the cherry on top after that.
That's good. Anybody got something different to say about that?
I mean, I think one of the things that I'm actively working on using technology for is to reduce friction, right? How to make it easier for people to access the story, right? From where they are. How to make it deeper, make it richer, make it more immersive in a way that people can sort of get to. Because there are a lot of barriers to people getting access to content, right? And they range from the fact that in some places there's just too freaking much, right? And people have a hard time making decisions. And so figuring out how to find the people who will like what you do is, I think, a key piece of that. But also, for people who might not have access to computers but do have access to a phone, people who might not have access to a large TV but have, can get their hands on a library, figuring all of those pieces out from a, I want to reach an audience perspective is sort of where I'm leaning on technology right now.
Well, I would say that part of the opportunity of being a storyteller and being able to use technology is really a chance to listen, right? You get a chance to listen to so many other stories and so many other narratives and spaces, particularly those that traditionally have been underrepresented, maybe misaligned from traditional media services. Thinking, just a research project I just had a couple weeks ago in Indonesia, where we were looking at the impact of artificial intelligence on indigenous communities. And I think our research was that they don't need technology. We need to be using our technology to listen and translate what they know, right? Because they have a lot more intentional relationship, not only just with in the traditional sense of living, but and just so many other amazing ways of just humanity that we are losing in translation by the same technology that we're looking to empower. And so that's all to say is that using technology as a listening tool, not just as something to just tell our stories, but really curate the library of humanity, right, is what is exciting for like how we love to use technology for the stories that I tell. That we're able to encompass a bigger experience, but at the same time, that we don't look at technology in the long term as being prescriptive. But I think that's where we are now, because to your point and what we were saying earlier, we've had technology thrust upon us, right, for so many reasons. And we've had about 100 years of innovation in the past 20. And we're, as humans, aren't built for that. Like there's too much information. It's like too many television channels, and dare I say, there's too many video games. I can't play them. Right? And so going from standing in line for Miss Pac-Man to my phone has 100,000 games available to it, and I don't like any of them. Right? And so that's where I'm hoping that technology can help us curate the stories that we get to hear. Right?
Good, very good. Noret, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I had a thought while Dedren was talking about a different tack, because I really think technology can do so much to lower barriers of entry. And the reason I started writing was because I felt such a low barrier of entry, but it also, that wouldn't have kept me writing if I couldn't have shared it and then gotten feedback from someone else. Like that human interaction over something I created, like also via technology, was what then really got me into it. So I think like connecting you with either peer groups or just like an audience, like that's really important.
Yeah. I think what I hear is that we don't have to create with tech just because the tech exists. But if there's an intention behind it and a great storytelling, then use the tools around you. But just because it exists doesn't mean it has to be used. And I think that content creators today is a sign of a runaway storyteller. Right? And what Dedren just said is just too much. Yeah, just because you have it. So, in any case, last subject we're going to touch on is that the AI part. And want your opinions on it. And but I will say this: it's a tool just like Photoshop was. There's a big back and forth in the creative community. And about jobs being taken, but so were other traditional artists saying the same thing 20, 30 years ago, that their jobs were being taken. And this happened to me. I was taking photos with a digital camera at a barbershop, because I was doing a lot of graphic design in those days. And I was just taking a couple of photos so I can do this business card for the shop that I used to get my haircuts, because I used to have hair. And so there was a photographer sitting there, a professional photographer, who was getting his hair cut, and he got mad at me because he said I was taking his job. But we didn't have smartphones at that time. It was just a digital camera. And so that, to me, that argument's been around a long time also. It's just another battlefield. So go ahead, let us hear your takes on it. TJ started with that already, so go ahead, bro. You ready?
Oh yeah.
He's ready.
Man.
We're just going to step way back.
Listen, guys. The concept of what AI is supposed to do and why they built it is very interesting. It's an intriguing concept. But the insanely fast capacity of learning that these systems have is kind of scary. I mean, when you talk about Terminator and Skynet, I mean, it's really that. I don't think it will replace completely creative things, but people will continue to try to push an agenda for folks to use it. And you will have public figures pushing their own AI companies. I had a conversation with a football player, wanted to create an AI company to, quote unquote, remove the blockades and gatekeeping of comics. And I kind of rolled my eyes when I first heard it, but I was like, let me just give this person a chance. We had this conversation, and they were essentially taking an AI system that was proprietary from another company and using it for their own thing. So the damage had already been done, and what's scary is that a lot of people don't understand what they're doing. They just this is the way of the future, so I'm just going to grab onto it. And really what AI does, it's a learning module that will look at a person's art and, identify key variables and siphon that away. So again, in less fancy terms of saying it's just stealing. That's really what the programs do when it comes to art. And it does, when you look at the lists of people that it's taken from, it's a host of comic book artists, illustrators, painters, from decades and decades of just people pouring their blood, sweat, tears, and creativity and passion into these images. So there's a morality standpoint from it too. And I think it's the onus is on us to really take this seriously and try to identify and educate ourselves as to what it looks like, because it's really deceiving on certain things. Now, sometimes you're going to get a picture with 6 fingers or a 3rd foot. Like, wait a minute, that's not illustrated by a human. But other times you're going to get stuff that looks really confusing. And, there are a lot of comic creators who just, unfortunately don't want to put in the work and the time and the energy necessary to become good enough to compete in this industry. So they're just going to lean on AI. That's what I was talking about earlier. It takes away your ability to actually better yourself and sharpen your skills. You're just staying dull. Nobody wants to stay dull. Why do you want? Nobody in this room wants to stay dull. Everybody wants to be sharp. I can tell you guys are awesome. So the best way to do that is just, find what you like doing and just continue to hone that craft. And I think I've been in the business 10 years, even longer as a comic book fan, and I've seen people complain about digital, want only digital, but then come back to print. I always think there's a space for print because it's something tangible that will live. They can collect it in a library, they can read it in their bag or on their way to work. There's always going to be room for us. But we do have to, again, educate ourselves so we don't get bamboozled and hoodwinked. When you go to a Kickstarter and it looks incredible, but the whole thing's created by AI. It's like, oh man, we don't want to put our dollars behind that because it's too easy to, take, just stuff away from the people who are making it. And yeah.
All right. Cool. Go ahead, Kimberly. Yes.
I think you're discounting the one thing that always, so far anyway, has been able to counter technology, and that's people. So I don't know if anybody here has seen the original Godzilla movies from the 70s, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Those were freaking terrifying at the time. People actually were concerned about stuff like giant lizards. They delivered a very visceral action. But you look at them today, and you can tell it's a guy in a rubber suit. Every single person in this room can look at a movie from even 10 years ago and see the visual effects, right? If you look at the original Jurassic Park, the VFX is on full display. At the time, it was mind-blowing, but we've all gotten used to it. We can all see through it. And I think we're already seeing this with AI. Is AI-generated art, it tends to be soulless. It tends to register on an uncanny valley level with people. A lot of people can tell very quickly. If you've been artistically trained, you can tell almost immediately, even if it doesn't have extra fingers, if something's AI generated. So I think there's absolutely a danger of lazy people trying to speed run the system by using AI. But I think also that, the people who consume artwork and the people who consume literature are going to outpace it in terms of being able to tell when it's being abused. And, there's going to be some people who don't care because they can get a new cookie in their inbox every week. But you are going to have a large, body of people who are going to be like, yeah, it's AI generated. I don't want that now. Right? It's the same way you have people who don't want mass-produced, mass-produced candies these days don't taste quite as good, right? People sort of get turned off of the generated in quantity. So I think we're going to have a reckoning within the next few years specifically on the art side, where people are AI is going to lose the shine, and people aren't going to fall for it anymore because they're going to see it and they're go, oh yeah, that's, that was AI generated. There's no magic there. There's no there's no inspiration there. There's nothing special about it. It's just pretty, right? So that's my hope anyway. I may be deluding myself, but people are pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. All right.
I like that hope.
Dedren?
Yes, yeah, people are awesome. I'll triple down on that. I think we talk about art and we talk about humans. Now the economist in me is saying like the economics by which these systems have been completely invested in and put into every facet of our life is that AI absolutely is a transformative technology. Like it's not going to go away. I don't think it's going to lose in the sense of which, there's going to be a human uprising and we're going to be standing on Terminators and the dawn of fall to us in the background. But I think the reality is that we're going to adjust, right? And these systems are set up to outlast us. And so I think the part of us being awesome people is that we have to understand that AI is some system that just uploaded on Skynet, right? I think today's, trying to access my nerd files. I think that in Terminator 2 is August 29th, right?
It's close, yeah.
So I think we're falling on one of the days by which Skynet is active. So it could be active, in one of these panels, but
The doors are locked.
The door's locked. But that's all to say is that we have to understand that AI is only going to be as good, as bad, or as intrusive as we let it. And what AI is really doing is learning how we treat each other. So if it's stealing art, it's because a human told it to steal art. It didn't just wake up and go online and start, generating and taking through art. Somebody with that intent came through and built those systems. Likewise, if you use or utilize it and you're only seeing a certain type of image, right? That's because those certain type of images are already set up by other humans. And all the systems are doing is just learning from the other systems, right? And so I think what that just means is that we have an incredible opportunity, with AI to teach that system better than maybe we taught ourselves. And so in that sense, right, the positives by which technology can help us flourish can be achieved. But I think that we're saying like the next 3 to 5 years is just going to be award machines. And, and the machines are not going to take a break.
Right. Yeah, they don't sleep. Noret, got a couple of minutes to tell us about it.
I'll try and be brief. I'm against generative AI, but to end on a note of hope, I guess. I think the reason that we read or consume art generally is not to have it summarized. Like, although we did that maybe in high school, grade school, in order to pass a test, like we'll just get the quick Cliff Notes version. That when you consume art, it's about empathy. It's about living in someone else's shoes for a while, and about like following that role. And I think AI is a tool that is exceptionally great at summarizing. And so at least for me, I have hope that it won't replace people, because that's when you go to art, that's not what you're looking for.
All right. Last words is your social media or website. Go ahead, Noret.
I'm Noret Flood. My handle on Instagram is Puddles4263, Puddles like the water. I have a story, The Legend of Red Nibley Ghost Town, that's on Amazon. If you want to check it out.
Thank you. Dedren Snead on most socials, and my humble studio is called Subsume. And so we have Subsume Media and Subsume Studios on most social channels as well. Thank you.
Yeah, my turn. You can find me on most platforms as Ingenue, ING3NU, because the 3 is silent. I have mentioned I write science fiction. You can find me on Amazon. Just search for Kimberly Unger. So far, I'm the only one on there. And if you're looking for my online blog, it's Unger Inc. UNGERINK, as in ink and paint.
I had a pleasure chatting with you guys. Thanks for letting me come in and spread my thoughts and my feelings about everything. Super easy to find me, TJ Sterling, pretty much everywhere in terms of the comics. My publishing company is Ray Media, and our comics are available here at the America's Mart, table 528, or if you want to go to our website, raecomics.com, at raecomics. On Instagram, pretty active on there, posting lots of cool stuff. I try to go to as many cons as possible. So hopefully I'll see you guys again soon.
And I am Delta Tango Mike. Anywhere on the internet, Delta Tango Mike. Thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you to Jarvis for making this possible. And we'll see you around this weekend.